Our first speaker is ready to join us, and let me introduce you to Taylor Matthews, CEO at Mugen Creations, with his presentation about trials and tribulations of translating in the game industry. And Taylor will tell us about the adventures his company had translating the game that won Game of the Year 2019 award. The name of the game is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I have never played that one, but if you guys played this game, tell us in chat. Would be really nice to know if you're familiar with this game. And the mission of Mugen Creations started with translating and delivering bug reports from English to Japanese and Japanese to English. Yeah, I forgot to say, Mugen Creations is a Japanese-based company. And they ended up translating the whole game as well as over 10,000 reports. An amazing experience. Taylor, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Welcome to Work From Home. Nice to see you as a speaker today.
It's a pleasure, and it's also exciting to be the very first guest.
Yeah, really nice. You're really involved into the gaming industry. I see you also have this gaming chair.
Yeah, so
Good one.
in our office, we try to make it as game-centric as possible. So we work hard, we play hard.
Cool, really cool. Okay, so are you ready to share the screen?
I am.
Just give me 1 minute, maybe less. Guys, during the presentation, you're welcome to use Q&A tab to leave your questions. And then after Taylor will finish the presentation, I will help to ask those questions for you. Please don't use chat. It will be hard for us to find those questions in the chat because you guys leave in a lot of messages there. So just use this Q&A tab in the bottom of your Zoom application window. Okay, I'm now turning off my camera, turning off my mic, and give it to you, Taylor. Enjoy.
All right, thank you very much. So let me introduce my company really quick. The company's name is Mugen Creations. And I bet your first question is, what's a Mugen? So this is a Mugen. It's basically the Japanese word for infinite. And what we do a lot of things. I'm going to go into the details, but first let me introduce some of our staff. I'm the CEO. I handle a lot of the operations in the company. We have 30 or so full-time staff, so we're getting pretty big, all things considered. I worked with a lot of famous gaming companies as a game designer. So when you think game design, you think maybe the artwork, but game design is actually like the inner workings of games. So like what kind of RPG will it be? What kind of characters there'll be? What kind of stats will the items have? That kind of stuff. Worked with Bandai Namco, Applebot, Cygames, etc. Some other stuff that we work with is Steve Heller. He's a producer. He's worked on many different indie type titles, Hacknet, Screensheet, and Orwell series. If you're familiar with games, you should have heard of them if you're into the indie scene. And then Scott Wilden, he's our communications manager. So basically he handles a lot of our SNS projects. We focus on not only game translation, but also SNS media and that kind of marketing side. So to go further into the details of what my company does, SNS management, so daily social media management on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, Discord, etc. Localization for like games, anime, manga, comics, anything that requires creative writing and breathing life into text. Product consulting, so if you want to bring your game or whatever item, product, etc. to either the East or the West, we know a lot of information about those countries and we can help you do that. We work with a lot of influencers, a lot of PR companies, so advertising, campaigns, utilizing Facebook, Twitter, etc., press releases, all that. And we also have an in-house production team, so we can make trailers for you, assets for posting and all that good stuff. So let me tell you a little short story on how we worked with Activision and FromSoftware on Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. It won Game of the Year 2019. So the particular topic of this event is game localization as a living organism. Now, if you're familiar with games, you might have remember a game called Spore, which is basically creating living organisms within a game. So I want to talk a little bit about the game localization and how, to us, we feel like it's a living organism, sorry, not organization. So I want to talk about 3 particular things: the importance of gaming, current status of the gaming industry, and how we at Mugen are overcoming the trials and tribulations that come with game localization. Now, the importance of gaming. In this particular image, you're probably thinking, why is he showing a banana and why is there a doctor there? So when you think about gaming, you don't think of it as an essential item. Like if, for example, all games were to disappear tomorrow, everybody would still go on living. But we can't live without food. We can't live without medical care. We need these kind of things. But is gaming really that unimportant? Let's remember what happened in 2020. So we have killer bees, we have the coronavirus, we have a lot of people going around and putting on like protests, we have basketball players passing away, and we have fires in Australia. When you think about fires in Australia, yeah, that happened in January. 2020 has been pretty crazy, and it's not even over yet. So with all of this craziness happening, I think really deep down that games are important. One specific example of it being important is, for example, Animal Crossing. This game, I believe, probably saved a whole bunch of humanity. It came out at the right place at the right time. Everybody was going probably crazy without all of that human connection. But then with Animal Crossing, you can boot up the game and actually interact with people all around the world. So to us, we feel that, yes, it certainly did have more importance than people think that gaming has. So I want to come and talk about the current gaming industry. Now this information that I have here is all prior to coronavirus. So I'm pretty sure the average hours played and the hours of games watched has increased significantly since then. But upon this data, it was about an average of 6 hours played a week and an average of 3 hours a week watched online. So with all of those like games being played all around the world, and these are from France, Germany, India, Italy, Japan, South Korea, etc., etc. All of these countries and all of these people around the world are playing games, watching games. So having proper localization and having people that really understand games being involved in it is really pretty important. So not only is it important for the people playing it, but it's also important for the people that are making it. And the particular story that I have today is in the making side of things. So people around the world are working with companies that are not in the country that they are, that are in another country that speak a different language. So like various language pairs are pretty difficult for like to overcome. And sometimes they need a third party to kind of help breach that language gap. So for example, the company Crest, they work with a developer that's in Korea and their internal team is Japanese. So they need somebody in between to handle Korean and Japanese. And then for example, the publisher Fellow Traveler worked with a developer in Australia and a port developer in Poland. These language barriers had to be overcome as well. This particular story that I'm discussing about is how we helped Activision and FromSoftware on things that they needed done. What did they need to have done? Well, they came to us and said, we want you to translate bug reports from English to Japanese and then translate the comments from Japanese to English every day, twice a day until release. If this doesn't say translation is a living organism, I don't know what does. From morning to night, every day. And we're like, sure, we can do that. They came to us and said, hey, we're going to be using this program called Jira software. And so internally we thought, first we got to figure out the logistics of it. We only need to translate the reports that need translation, only translate comments that need translation. Copy and pasting was out of the question because nobody wants to do that and it's prone to human error. It needs to be able to be scaled according to like the amount of work coming in. Translated content needs to be imported back to Jira in the appropriate places. And also we needed to work through a VPN. Now a VPN, a lot of people's common thought when they hear VPN is it allows you to be pretend that your IP isn't in another country. So even if I'm in Japan, I use a VPN, I can say that I'm in America to watch American Netflix maybe. But also VPN is there for security measures. So if you use a VPN, then you can actually access servers and areas that normally you cannot access otherwise. So we had to use that very high security stuff. And then we were thinking about, okay, so we have Jira and we have the logistics figured out. How do we work together with like software that can be like answer all of those needs that we have? And we've been really familiar with Smartcat. And so we thought, okay, let's work with Smartcat. And also they use the Mugen symbol and we found that pretty exciting. So to kind of bring you back up to speed, Activision working with Jira Software, we're using an API with Jira Software and Smartcat. So with our research, we figured out that Smartcat has an API and Jira has an API. And what we did was we created some software that allowed us to connect Jira and Smartcat and do the things that we needed it to do. So what were we able to do? We were able to use a tag system to only translate the reports that needed translation. We had a flag system based on who commented on a report in Jira to then let our script know what needed to be translated. We ran a script that imported and exported the required text in a format that was compatible with Smartcat. Then once translations were labeled complete in Smartcat, we would run the script to export directly to Jira. And then the PC that we were running the script had access through a VPN to then finally push the translations to where they needed to be. I know it sounds really complicated, so to kind of show you exactly what we mean. So here we have like a sample Jira screen. And here we have the type, bug, status, like to do, description. So in here we have the bug reports, etc. And then also the people that are working on it and all of those good things. So we had to take the information from here, also the comments from here, using that tag that I mentioned earlier. And then we needed to put it into Smartcat. Now Smartcat, as this is Smartcat is the host, I'm pretty sure many of you have accessed this particular screen, but here on the left hand, we have the text that needs to be translated. On the right hand side, we have the text that is translated, and then like what our translators put in. And then over here, we have, memory banks and information, that in regards to the translation. So say, for example, we were translating one bug and it has terminology that we needed to use amongst all of our translators. We would use this tool to make sure that everything was consistent, nice and neat, and all that good stuff. One thing that we had to do is make sure that once the translation was in there and edited and all that, we had to make sure that it was labeled done. Some people don't go through that entire process, but it was a must for us. So the particular steps that were needed in order to import the text within to Smartcat and also to Jira was like this. We imported new text to translate. Translation needed to be marked completed on Smartcat. Check which translations are new from our database and Smartcat. Export translations into Jira compatible format and import translations back into Jira. So this particular part right here, the third one, check which translations are new from our database. So if we didn't have a database within the computer that we were running the script, we would constantly be pulling the same kind of bugs all the time. And so we needed to make sure that once we translated a particular report, that it didn't come up again. So that's where some coding got complicated, but we were able to work it out. And this is the kind of script that it became. So whenever we ran the script, what it did was it pulled the text from Jira and inserted it into our database. It labeled it, according to what it was labeled on Jira. And then the next one, we imported the translation text to our internal database. Then from there, we had to make that text compatible with Jira. So we converted it. And then we imported the text back into Jira. So this place is also pretty complicated and there's not enough information in here to know exactly how we did it, but it ultimately ended to be quite a bit of text and quite a bit of code, but then it saved us a lot of time. So we took a few weeks developing it. It became a total of 11 files of script, 1,000 lines of code, but the amount of time that it saved us was just dramatic. There were days where we'd get hundreds and hundreds of reports, and we were running on the same 12-hour schedule. So the bug reports were all written in English from Activision, which is the American publisher, and the comments to those particular bug reports were all into Japanese. So what we did was we took the English, we translated from English to Japanese so that the people that were debugging the game and coding the game could understand where they needed to fix. And then after they fixed it, and or if they had questions in regards to replicating that bug, they would write it in the comments. So they would be like, hey, we had problems replicating this bug. Can you please go into more detail? Or, okay, we decided to fix this. Can you check it? Or, we don't have time to fix this. Can you just not even consider this a bug anymore? And let's just move on and continue on more bugs with higher priority. And so all of these comments, all of these reports were constantly being translated every single day for an entire year. And then from there, they're like, hey, Mugen, so we have another issue. The game translation needs to be done, and we don't have enough people to handle it. Can you guys handle it? And so they gave us quite a bit of text to translate in very, very short amount of time. And I don't know if you've played Sekiro, but the type of English that you see there was translated from Japanese that even Japanese people had difficulty reading and understanding at times. So in a very short time span, we were given really difficult Japanese to translate and had to deliver all while doing the bug reports as well. So it was a very chaotic, a lot of trials that we had to overcome, but ultimately a very, very satisfying job. So we did over 2,000 or 10,000 reports, over 2 million characters and words. And yeah, we translated the in-game text. And we got our name in the credits as well, which is quite important for us as a company because it won Game of the Year 2019. Yeah. Anyways, so I think I kind of sped through that presentation quite quickly. So we still have quite a few minutes to spare. I guess we can go into the Q&A. If you guys want to contact us, you can always use the QR code here or visit us here on the website there. But yeah, for those that have questions, I think we could probably get into there. So actually, for LinkedIn, oh, sorry, if Max, you want to join in, you can.
Yeah, of course. I'm here to help you with the Q&A part. And so, yeah, you started with the right question. It was the first one about the LinkedIn. So please comment on this.
Okay, so believe it or not, I'm not very active on LinkedIn. If you guys are really interested in contacting me, you can contact me through the website contact form. I know I probably should get in the LinkedIn and get my profile going there, but in Japan, it's really not a thing here. So I haven't really felt the need to be super involved in LinkedIn. I guess maybe in the future when it starts to pop up and be more important in Japan, perhaps I could do that. But sorry, guys.
Okay, good. So another thing that I wanted to tell you quickly, that there is a nice comment from Han Lee. He said that Sekiro is my game of the year of 2019. The quality of localization is top notch.
Thank you very
I
much.
think you will like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
We
just got
appreciate
it.
that.
I just got it in the Zoom chat. So yeah, guys, keep going. Share your feedback. We keep monitoring this. Okay, so let's take a look at our Q&A part. So there is a question from Karina Balbo. What's the pricing strategy for this type of project?
So the pricing strategy for this particular project was pretty interesting. So when discussing prices with the publisher, we were saying it's difficult for us to give an exact rate due to not knowing exactly how much work is going to be required for our staff, because depending on the month, the amount of work coming in can go up quite high or go down quite low. So what we started them out with is a monthly rate that would satisfy our requirements to pay our staff, as well as generate a little bit of a profit. And then we also put in a limit of how many reports that we would do over the entire year span. So if it went over that amount of bug reports, we would get a certain amount of extra money per bug report from then on.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, so I hope this answers the question, and we can move to another one from Valentina Costanza. Um, how much time did it take to develop the API connecting Jira and Smartcat?
So the coding itself, it took about 2 weeks, and that included a lot of testing. So what we would have to do is we had to make a Jira account, and we also had to make a test Smartcat account, and worked with the information within there. And then from there, after all of the testing, yeah, it ended up working. Of course, at the very beginning, we had some hiccups here and there that we had to fix along the way. But in general, I believe a couple of weeks is all it took to fully get it up there. Yeah,
Mm,
it was about 2 weeks, but not 8 hours a day of pure coding. Just, yeah.
okay. Okay, good. So let's then check the question from Indira Lorenzo. Did you consider an empty plugin on Jira? Atlassian seemed to have an in-product translation feature. English to Japanese is not a great language pair in empty, but wondering if this was considered as an option.
Okay, so did you consider empty plugin? So, okay, machine translation for this particular thing wasn't actually something that we could really consider. And the reason being is the requirement of the job needed to be very, very specific. So we were translating bug reports, and if we relied on machine translation for that, the bug report would probably be, off, right? So what we did was we did it all manually. But the thing about bug reports is they're pretty much the same kind of steps. So the more translations we did, the more our translation memory filled up to be usable on further reports. So that means when we got to the very, very hectic areas, like time span of the development process, and we were getting hundreds of reports a day, that machine or not that machine translation, but the memory were like helping us fill in those translations quickly so that we could have, we didn't have to have a huge amount of translation or translators involved in the project. We did have quite a few, but because we had this translation memory built up from all of those months prior, we didn't have to escalate it to like hundreds of people. So yeah.
Good, good. And there is a question about Jira again. Michal Heffer is asking, how did you develop the connection to Jira? Is it something you did, or did Smartcat somehow help to you?
So I would like to say Smartcat helped me, but no, unfortunately we did it all. But they did offer a lot of help. So when we had questions, Smartcat's staff were always quick to answer, and they did help us out in a lot of the bumps and stuff from there. But basically we looked at Jira's API and Smartcat's API, and it was all documented very well, so we were able to figure it out there. But there was one instance that was a very interesting thing that we helped, I think, Smartcat figure out, is that there's a limit to how many translation, like imported, like translation, what is it, rows? Columns. So we had like several hundred pages worth of translation in there. And I think maybe when we were using it, everybody noticed, but we were making Smartcat go really, really slow at one time. We were kind of, yeah, the file limit, yeah. And so that Smartcat was going really, really slow in the import and export process. And I had to speak with Max, and I'm like, Max, why is it taking so long? And he's like, you have several hundred pages of translations done. You need to archive those. You need to get rid of those. And so it ended up us having to do those manual purges every now and then. But if you had like a very slow time period, sometime in 2018-19 area, that was probably because of us and all the bug reports that we were putting into Smartcat.
Yeah, it was really something happened really unexpected. Yeah. So Another question that we have here from Rafael Matias. Hey Taylor, how to get started on gaming business? Thanks and greetings from Brazil. Amazing job.
Thank you. So the gaming business and industry in general, especially in Japan, is very connection based. So I worked in the gaming industry from the inside. So I was able to make a lot of connections with people that were developing the games. And so when I shifted from being a Japanese game designer to running my own business, I utilized those connections to get those jobs that we needed at the beginning. Now, from there, we used our experience and the games that we worked on to further get more game translation jobs. But basically, I think anybody can get into the gaming industry. Not that I want to make all these rivals out there, but yeah, if you guys contact various games and the publishers and whatnot and say, hey, we would like to localize your game to bring it more to people in the Brazil, then I don't see what's stopping you. Just as long as you have quality and passion and people that can check your work after, then I think you can do it. Nothing should be stopping you.
Okay. So many questions coming. Another question from Iman Abdu. I just want to know how could you organize the work between translators and reviewers in a very short time?
So it wasn't exactly a very short time. The entire process was over a year, but we had several months to prepare for it. And at the very beginning, the amount of bug reports coming in wasn't that high in amount. So we were able to work with the initial translators that we were assigned for this particular project. But then as things started to ramp up, we had a general idea of when that was going to happen. So we reached out and made sure that we trained the new translators and the reviewers over the text and stuff that we've been translating, several months before, to make sure that they were on par with the current translators, and we scaled it that way.
Cool. Taylor, my colleagues helping me to say that when you share your screen, the attendees do not see us. So if you can stop sharing,
Oh, sure.
they will see us on the cameras. So yeah. And so let me check what other questions we have here.
Sure.
Okay. So there is a question from Carolina Kalojiesh. I'm sorry for pronouncing.
Mhm.
You've mentioned the Japanese original was quite difficult. How closely did you work with game creators to understand it? Was there a process platform for queries?
So basically what we did was we got Excel sheets from the developer to translate the text, right? So within these sheets, it had a lot of information like who was the speaker and various information that helped us understand the kind of situation that was happening within the game. But also when we were translating it, when we translated on the side of our translation, we added all of these comments, right? Saying, so because of this, we translated it this way. In this way, when the developer and or publisher looked over our translations, they could see where we were coming from. And if we were unsure about a certain area, we would say, this particular area could be also translated this way. So based on the way that it showed in the game, you might want to adjust accordingly. But we worked very closely with the publisher. We had to have meetings if there was anything that we weren't sure of. And yeah, we used a comment area in the Excel sheet to further flesh out any kind of translations to make sure that what we were submitting was accurate, considering the short time period or time span, as well as the difficult Japanese that we were working with.
Cool. Oh, I see Robert O'Keefe has already joined us and shared a couple of questions.
Mhm.
Good presentation. What processes are in place to maintain the linguistic quality of the game?
So the process that we would have is for the game translation, as I said just a minute ago, that we'd have information explaining what kind of things were happening, but we would also, ask a lot of questions, as well as make sure that we would update our glossaries and whatnot, so that when we were translating it with multiple translators at times that we would need to, we would make sure that the language used was consistent throughout. And also we would have one particular reviewer that was involved in the entire project from the beginning to the end, make sure to review the final script so that it was utilizing the same kind of language and whatnot. So to, you know, even working with a lot of different translators, some would give like a certain character a different way of speaking. And so when we had that final reviewer review it, it would be like, oh, okay, this particular character speaks this way. So we would change it accordingly.
Okay, cool. Taylor, I should say that there are at least 2 attendees who are interested in this Jira connector, really, and asking if this is something that you can also share with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that we can discuss it
Yeah,
together.
so yeah, Max and I actually spoke about this, maybe offering it on the Smartcat's store area. So yeah, since there are people interested in it, I think, yeah, Max and I can
Yeah,
progress with those discussions a little bit more.
yeah, we should take it further. Cool. Okay, other questions we have. Um, I hope you are not get tired, Taylor, because really your presentation got a great interest from the attendees and they leave more and more questions. Another question from, let me check. Yeah, another question from Robert O'Keefe, our next speaker. Did you consider the suitability of machine translation or aid the JIRIC content translation? And if so, what did you learn?
So
You
I'm
partially
guessing,
answered this, but yeah, maybe you
yeah.
add
So
something.
yeah, as I said, machine translation is definitely something that we couldn't consider. Not only was like the quality of the translation very, very important, but also, yeah, the client didn't want that to happen as well.
Yeah, okay. And so we have a couple of more questions. Do you do user testing?
Do we do user testing? So I'm thinking the particular question is, did we play the game after we translated it to see if the translation was accurate or not? Or I'm not exactly sure what user testing they are referring to, but so the localization quality assurance was actually done by the publisher to make sure that the translation matched it and all that. So that wasn't particularly our job, but we did help them iron out any kind of translation issues should there have been then.
Okay, so I see Francesca Ethic has added some content from someone is not a translator, so probably telling about testing translators if they are good in translation, the quality of their translation. So probably
So
about this.
I see. So all of our translators that we work with have to undergo a very, very difficult translation test to even be considered to work with us. So upon them completing that test, I, as well as my other staff, go through the translation test and assure that the quality is there. So yeah, we work with a lot of specialists in special areas, especially games. And so that's how we kind of judge that quality there.
Okay, so I have to say that you answered all the questions, Taylor. Thank
Okay,
you
cool.
very much for this insightful presentation.
Not a
Uh,
problem.
and really appreciate you joining us today.
Yep, no problem. If you guys have any further questions or anything, feel free to hit me up on the website there, or yeah, contact Max. He knows me, so he can get to
Yeah.
me too. All
Or
right,
wait
thank you,
for
everybody.
Taylor to create his LinkedIn profile one day.
I have one. It's just not very updated, and I don't even have a picture on it, so it's very embarrassing. But yeah, I'll check out the LinkedIn profiles and add people that want to have me added there. So,
We
anyways, thank you
encourage
very
you
much.
to. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Yep. Bye bye.